Welcome to the Dadlit Pod, the literary podcast for people who know how to use both a propane and a charcoal grill. Today I'm joined by author J.S. Bell. He also publishes under the name Scott Bell, and you can find books written by him there. Jay wears the secret identity of a typical boring suburban man by day. At night, he transforms to a keyboard punching wordsmith, born and raised in the suburbs of Dallas, Texas. He is the author of Welcome to Cottonmouth, set to be released on July 8th, 2025 by Blackstone Publishing. Welcome to Cottonmouth was born out of Bell's search for an ensemble of flawed and quirky characters who could team up, Mission Impossible style, to defeat enemies, foreign and domestic, and anywhere in between. He definitely didn't want another James Bond, Jack Reacher, the Gray Man, or the archetype of the action hero as his leading man. Further, he wanted a strong female lead who comes with baggage and needs a redemption arc of her own. Cottonmouth gives him a great way to tell many stories, breathe life into a variety of characters, and explore many different plot lines. Bell currently resides less than 30 miles from where he was born. He's a cancer survivor who worked his way up through two long and fulfilling careers, raised two kids to adulthood, has owned and been owned by many cats, and has been married to his lovely wife for over 30 years. I'll keep writing until saner people take my keyboard away and wheel me out to sit on the porch, where I will have a book cracked open on my lap. Well, welcome to the pod, Jay.
Thank you. Great to be here. It's exciting. Talk about dad stuff.
Talk about dad stuff. Well,
Dad stuff and dad books,
tell
that's
me,
great.
tell
Love
me
the
about
idea.
Welcome to Cottonmouth, your new book coming out from Blackstone.
Yeah, thank you. It was born from a couple of different ideas that, I plug everything into my sort of what if machine, and sometimes, disparate elements go into that what if machine. And at the time this was conceived, there was a lot on the news about sanctuary cities, right? Uh, right or wrong, it was just on the news, so it was sort of in top of mind. And I threw that into my what if hopper, and I was also thinking about retired spies because of certain movies that I'd seen about retired spies, and it was just really one of those things where those two things clicked together. And I thought, what if we had a sanctuary city for spies, right? So what this is about this town in East Texas, which is way off the beaten path and is on a road to nowhere. And in this town and its environs, the government has settled foreign agents who were, who came over defected, some old retired operators, some, people who needed some time away. Instead of a safe house, it's a safe town, right? And so my main character is Devlin Mahoney. He's kind of a as I or as you alluded to in the intro. I didn't want this Devlin to be this super agent that had all the moves, had all the could shoot a
He
gnat's ass at 400 yards.
he seems like
Uh,
a parrot head to me. That's how I would describe him.
yeah, fair enough. I mean, that's pretty fair. And I would say to you that what he is, he's a little bit of a broken individual, and he's sort of tasked with the job of managing some of these residents in this town and kind of keeping the peace, if you will, amongst all these various different elements. And but unfortunately, he's not really good at keeping the peace because he tends to get involved in things that probably she shouldn't get involved in. And so when the main female character and her ward, the young lady she's traveling with, appear on his doorstep, and obviously they're in trouble. Obviously they're being chased by some really unsavory characters. He has to make that decision. Do I get involved? Do I, just let it play out and just stay out of the way, or what happens? And so, of course, it wouldn't be a story if he'd stayed away. So, of course, he gets involved, and
Yes.
um, you know, things tumble out of control from there, if you will. Sort of events happen at that point that makes the story more compelling, right?
Absolutely. And so I would say that Devlin reminds me of almost like a knight errant. He's very chivalrous, but with a hint of modern spycraft.
Yeah, if you think of Travis McGee, that's Travis McGee was John D. McDonald's hero for many, many books. I don't know if you ever
Mm,
read them, but that's sort of the same kind of vibe that I was going for. A little bit
hmm
of a talker. He was undercover with the Defense Intelligence Agency, so he was um, one of those folks that had to convince people that he was obviously one of them. So very, very good with words and very, much more articulate than I am, and the ability to charm people if he needs to. So
He
anyway,
kind
that's
of,
the character.
yeah, he kind of reminds me of Bruce Campbell and the character that Bruce
Hmm.
Campbell plays
Yeah, sure.
in a lot of roles.
Yeah, I could go with that.
Very, very fun. So you went the full gamut with your cast of characters. You have representatives from all over the world, all of the the different spy and military agencies throughout the world coming together to help your heroine. What
Reluctantly in some cases, but yes.
reluctantly, yeah, reluctantly in some cases. How'd you get your education on the wide, wide world of spycraft, spies, weaponry? Because there's a lot of specific stuff,
Well, that's
which is
classified. I
fun.
can't
It's
tell you the
fun.
details now.
Yeah.
Now, I research a lot. I read a lot. As as one of those things in I think one of my bios at least I talk about the fact that I read a lot of that type of fiction.
hmm
And there's some elements of truth if you know what to sift for. And then like I said, obviously I do a lot of research. My search history in my browser is probably already been flagged by several agencies.
Almost
Um,
definitely.
yeah, it's just that's just how it is, right? Hey, look, I'm a writer. I promise. I really didn't want to know how to kill somebody like that. Just it happened. But anyway, to your point, I mean, it's just case. I think I've just baked a lot of into that into my history, and as I read, I pick things up and I put them together, and that's what comes out. I'm glad you found it technically accurate, at least, because one of the things that bugs me to death is these. You get these big name authors who are just way off the map when it comes to reality. They use wrong phrases, wrong guns. They do stupid things with technology. It can't be done. And I'll give you a quick, for instance, if you don't mind. And that's I was reading a story about the super guy, big tough guy hero, and he finds a modern Mercedes sedan, right? And so he managed to get in there somehow. He never said how, but he managed to get into the car, and the story says that he ripped off the drive shaft and plugged two wires together. Well, first of all, the drive shaft is under the car. I think he meant the steering column. Okay,
The
so
Sierra column.
and I'm sorry, but there is no touching two wires together under the hood, under the steering column of a modern sedan. It can't be done, right? So
Yeah,
that's the kind
well,
of thing that
be
makes me crazy.
beyond that, if you ripped out the drive shaft is what's going to
Exactly.
is what takes the energy from the internal
Hmm.
combustion engine and puts it into the wheels.
Yep.
Removing it, removing it would be problematic.
Yeah.
So
Having replaced a few of those bearings, I know exactly what you're talking about.
yeah, what are some of your other bugaboos that because we haven't gotten into this a lot on the pod, but
Okay.
because you're a details man and you do a lot of detail stuff, what are just some things that just drive you nuts when you're
Well,
reading?
a lot of it gets into some minutia about the craft, right? About
Yeah.
how to construct prose. And if you pay attention to detail, you learn the way things are supposed to go together, and what makes first person, third person, close POV, all these things that are way too annoying for most people to listen to. But um, the things that make or break a novel for me is how somebody has put together and seems to know and have command of those elements of storytelling that tells me that I'm with somebody that I can trust to carry the story along. So I'll give
Hmm.
you, for example, if you're reading the first couple of chapters and you see that every dialogue tag is modified by an adverb, it's okay to do it once in a while, but if every
Hmm.
one of them is just modified by adverbs, and there's an abuse of the word suddenly. You know, one writer I got to the point that I did a search on my Kindle or whatever, and it was like 142 times he used the word suddenly. It's like, good gosh, can't find a different word. So anyway, it's the craft that to your question that will turn me off faster than anything else. Just knowing that as I see it, reading through that, and I see the adverbs, if I see the um, head hopping and different things like that, I can't stick with it. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. So what alternatively, when you're reading a book, gets you excited and keeps you engaged?
Well, yeah, just actually, like I said, if I can read somebody and I know that they know what they're doing, and I see the way they turn their phrases, and
Mm,
I get that comfort level. I mean, a couple of people that I buy without even thinking about looking at the blurb is like Robert Crace, for example. Robert Crace is uses every word like a bullet in targeted, right? It is exactly enough um, for the story and no more.
hmm.
And I just sometimes I just got going reading along, rather than being immersed in the story. I'm thinking, man, I wish I could write like that. That's great. I wish I did that. And it was like that type of thing is what gets me excited about reading. Of course, things blowing up that helps too.
Yes. So say you were needing to describe an explosion. This is let's talk about a matter of craft because
Hmm.
we'll do themes as well. But let's talk about
That's fine.
if you wanted to describe an explosion,
Mhm.
where would you start from a craft standpoint? Because there are a
That's a
lot of
that's a great
explosion.
question. Because here's the deal. There are a lot of guys, and some of them are really big name authors who have yet to figure out what a filter is, what a filter word.
Hmm.
Filter words are saw, heard, touched, smelled. They're the things that the author is telling you what the character is doing by saying
Hmm.
he saw the explosion or he felt the explosion or whatever. But if you're actually in that person's point of view, if you're down deep enough, you get beyond that author speak and you start talking about how that felt, what the pressure wave slammed into him, right? Rather than he
Yeah.
felt the pressure wave. The action verb that really conveys the sentence and makes it exciting um, is where I try to filter as I read. Excuse me, wrong word. I try to filter out my filters, put it that way. I've become very aware of filtering different actions, and just sometimes it's necessary because you need to set the POV early on in the scene. So you'd have to tell, Mahoney saw this, and then, okay, now I know I'm Mahoney's point of view. But
Yeah.
for the most part, if you overuse that, it personally it turns me off. Now, a lot of people they would never notice. It's like they would never see it. It may be sort of a little bit bothering them, but they can't put their finger on why it is.
Hmm.
So anyway, my thing is to always be as deep into the POV as I can get, and still be able to convey the story along.
Yeah. So it's a feel sort of methodology.
I'm trying to let the reader experience the same things that the character is experiencing, right?
Hmm.
I'm not standing back and saying he saw this, he heard this, he smelled this. I'm actually conveying that what it saw, what it looked like, what it smelled like, that type of thing.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. What's
and
a
that's
what's a sort of the most fun part of the whole writing and publishing process for you?
well, it's not the publishing, I'll tell you that. I think it's when you're in the groove and when you're writing a scene and it's working and the dialogue is snappy and it's coming to you, just it's flowing out of whatever creative void that exists in the back of your mind. Because I don't outline, and that's probably gets me
Yeah.
in a lot of trouble. But I start off and I want to know where the story's going to go. Right? I want to
Hmm.
know where it's going to end. That's why I'm writing. I'm writing to tell myself the story so I can see how it ends. But obviously, I have to back up once in a while. I don't need to put this together and plot blah blah blah. Um, sometimes I've been known to write myself into a corner and have to back out and throw all that away and start again. But regardless, it's a thing that makes me happy about writing. It's just the that process when it's clicking and it comes together, and they're really it makes me happy to read it. You know what I'm saying?
Hmm. Yeah. Yeah.
So it's just like it's for me rather than for somebody else. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I think when I do it, because I am similar to what you do, which is that I experience the book myself, and I'm sort of excited to see what is going to come out. But I usually run it through in my head. I sort of
Mhm.
see it like a movie
Oh
in
yeah.
my head, and then I sit down and try and capture what that movie looks like,
Yep.
and to describe it. So it tends to have a lot of visual cues, a lot of sight cues. I end up describing people's faces a lot,
Hmm.
which is the thing that I just it whether it's good or not, it ends up being a an element of my process of how I see the action transpiring.
Yep.
So yeah.
Yeah. I wind up when I've become very cognizant of dialogue tags and
Mm,
how many I use because I oftentimes will use action tags where instead of saying he said, then also blah 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 did this
hmm
to sort of set that as the person who was speaking. And I've known sometimes when I've gone back and edited, I'm like, oh man, I'm really bogging this thing down with all these little action tags. I need to just cut them out and let the dialogue speak for itself. And so,
hmm
that didn't really apply to your point. It was just as I was thinking through the way that the story unfolds and how we tell it.
Yeah, I think that's interesting because I'll use things like growled, for
Hmm.
example, very liberally, or that sort of dialogue tag of
Hmm.
what I think is a more precise version of said, effectively. And some people just really don't like that. It tends to other people don't care as much, and some people really like it. I think it's interesting from a craft standpoint that there's sort of a very because one of the things that really interests me is readers and how
Hmm.
people read and what they
Yep.
read. And it always interests me when someone has some element of their reading experience that really sort of takes them out.
Hmm.
Um,
Yeah.
one of the things that I liked about Welcome to Cottonmouth is that it's voicey and that it's action packed and that your characters are unfettered and fun. I
Yes.
really
Thank you.
enjoyed that. I really enjoyed that. I
Thank you.
think I think there is a lot of sort of hand wringing that goes on in lit these days, and
Hmm.
it was kind of fun to just take a ride, if that makes sense.
It does, and I will say to you that everything that I write is that way because I'm not gonna spend time navel gazing or hand wringing or any of that stuff. It's about because I'll go back to where I started, and I started with, as I mentioned, the John D. McDonald, Mickey Spillane, Louis
Yeah,
L'Amour, Robert Heinlein. I mean, guys that I read that were all about the story, getting the action out there. There wasn't, in some cases, there would be some preaching, but for the most part, it was all about the story, all about the character, and that's what I try to do myself. I definitely don't put any of my opinions into the work. They somebody bleed through. Sorry, but that's going to happen. But anyway, it's
yeah.
for the most part, I try to be
Uh,
straightforward and just tell us.
yeah, so you've written some other works.
Mhm.
Give me some titles that the Dadlit
Yeah.
community might be interested in reading.
Oh yeah. I think everything I do is good for dads, but then that's just me. I started the first thing I actually published was called Jaeger's Law, and that is a 4-book series right now with Jaeger's Mission, Jaeger's Choice, Jaeger's Getaway. I have a kind of a constant theme there. And the other series is a series with a featuring a Texas Ranger. Guess what? who is paired with a an FBI agent, kind of a shrewish little woman who has an attitude. And we have our Boy Scout Texas Ranger in a one of those buddy cop things with this FBI agent. And that was a lot of fun to write because I got into her Bronx accent and kind of push it up against the culture clash of being in Texas. And that was real fun to write. So those are the two series, and then I have several standalones. I just published a one called Murder City Blues, which is a noir type, harkens back to Dashiell Hammett type of story. Not as good as his, but that sort of similar vibe. And a couple of them that are one is like a YA ghost story, and then there's one that's really you either love it or you hate it. Science fiction story about reanimated corpses. So not quite zombies, but
Not quite
it's just
zombies. Yeah.
it's in that sort of vein. So anyway, I'll leave it at that for now. But yeah,
So you mentioned Texas, and
I did.
everything obviously is bigger in Texas. And I've been to Texas quite a few times, and spent a year living in Arkansas myself, which is not
Mhm.
Texas, but close
Yeah, no.
to Texas.
I spent many
Um,
summers in Arkansas.
yeah. So, how does Texas shape an author? I have to imagine because I'm from Maine, and Maine shaped me very decidedly, namely Stephen.
Hmm.
The most prominent Maine author is Stephen King and some others as well.
Yep.
Up there, Lost on a Mountain in Maine, those sort of stories were very influential for me, both from the perspective of themes and style and culture, and kind of the Maine Yankee persona. So, what's it like down in Texas? And how does Texas form an author?
Well, there's the Texas mystique. Obviously, growing up here, um, you start from practically from the crib, learning about the heroes of the Alamo, right? And then you
Oh
go
yeah.
from there to the cowboy mystique. So you get this whole vibe is about individualism, being you like that. I like the knight errant term, because you get a lot of people who are chivalrous, who do have
Hmm.
a sort of a maybe an old fashioned, if you will, code of honor. Um, so all that sort of is coming into me and I'm just absorbing it as part of the culture here in Texas. And it's such a huge place. You get so many
Oh,
different
it's
people.
massive.
You've got, in West Texas, you've got the desert. East Texas, you've got the piney woods. You've got the Gulf Coast. All the different big cities. So you get a tremendous diversity of characters that populate the state, and it's very fun to play um, with that collection of people and find characters out of that populate the stories.
Yeah, my most recently completed manuscript, um, I have a protagonist from
Hmm.
Houston,
Okay.
and she's got the sort of Houston dame persona, even though she's the daughter of a Houston litigator, Jewish litigator.
Hmm.
So
Okay.
it's an interesting mix, a mix of New York litigator and demure Texas Houston dame.
Little Southern Belle action, huh?
Little Southern Belle, little Southern Belle.
Yeah, well, you wouldn't recognize Houston anymore because they have definitely gone a long way from those roots, and
Yes.
yeah, it's everything urban and a lot of not a lot of the good things about being an urban environment. So
Well, I was down there. My friend Alex Marriott, who's been on the pod,
mhm,
and also writes detective novels.
okay,
He lives in Houston with his
mhm,
family and teaches in Houston. So I've been down there a couple of times. And one of my favorite drives, because I wanted to talk about East Texas,
yeah,
because you talk about Cottonmouth being sort of at the end of a one-way street
Mhm.
sort of situation in East Texas is that that drive from Houston to New Orleans is one of the prettiest drives I've ever taken.
Yeah,
I cannot encourage that enough. If people have a family and they want to make a pretty drive and see some interesting country, and I think just eat some of the best food I've ever had in my entire life.
there you go.
Yeah, particularly in that Western Louisiana,
Mhm.
Bayou cuisine, is just fantastic.
Yeah, don't keep down in that vein because I haven't had dinner yet. But
Well, sorry.
yeah, no, that's fine. The thing about East Texas is there's such a dichotomy. There's two cultures really, or being overly simplistic. But you've got the old Southerner, right?
Yeah.
The Southerner that's gracious and giving, and very church-going people. And then you've got the methamphetamine addicts that are covering up the place with their, you can't go two blocks without smelling some meth lab, there in the piney woods. And it's really strange because you've got this very different type of people. I mean, as you say, you're driving down
Yeah.
this highway, and you'll pass a beautiful home. It doesn't
Oh,
have to be huge,
huge,
but it doesn't have to be huge,
huge.
but it could be huge. But just beautiful, well tended, and horses grazing, and very pastoral. And
Yeah.
then a mile later, you're passing a trailer home that's up on blocks with 18,000 big wheels in the front yard, and it's just or old cars and whatever. So that's just kind of the dichotomy of the place. It's hard to describe, and it's hard to convey that.
Yeah.
There's so many people that are living off a government check out there, and they're very poor. Then there's the mega rich that are the weekend ranchers from Houston and Dallas and whatever, who have property
Yeah.
and
Plus,
got their
plus oil
house.
money.
Oh
Oil
yeah, yeah,
money.
yeah, yeah.
Uh,
Oil, timber, all of it. Yeah.
it's funny you bring up the Piney Barrens because of course I'm a big George Jones fan,
Hmm.
and that's where George Jones is from, the that pine country.
Hmm.
Yeah. Which is really interesting. Who would be your favorite Texas author?
Oh wow. Well, the only one that comes to mind as I think about it would be Elmer Kelton, who was a Western author.
Hmm.
Um, and I would have said Larry McMurtry if I could remember if he was like a native Texan or if he just came later. Can't recall.
Mm.
So,
Oh, did they have to be? Because I would say Kinky Friedman is mine, and I'm not sure he's technically native.
he's as Texan as they get, man. I don't know where he came from, but you're right. He's definitely part of Texas legend. And I'll tell you, it's funny. He ran for governor here a few
Oh, I
years back.
remember. I
And yeah,
remember.
and we were just everybody was like, "Really, guy? Come on." So,
I met him a couple of times.
did you really? Wow.
Yeah, yeah. He's a very interesting guy. I bought him a tequila and took my wife to see him without explaining to her what she was about to see.
Hmm.
It's so obviously when he busts out with "They ain't making Jews like Jesus anymore," and the crowd goes wild. My wife was very confused, so confused, but I was delighted because I'm such a big fan of
Fair.
his.
Yeah,
Yeah,
fair.
yeah. So, what is it like being a dad of kids who are in college? Because I believe you've got two college age kids.
Actually, mine are past college.
Oh, they're past college.
Yeah, my son is 30, which is really hard for me to admit. But he is
Jesus.
30. He is an aerospace engineer, living
Nice.
out in New Mexico, doing all sorts of stuff that you know way beyond my head. And my daughter is here. She's actually bounced back from college. She's 27, and she is a working on her architectural degree. So
Oh,
we are
great.
we are happy that that she's found a path, and that's a good thing. So I would say to you that it's really strange how you raise two children under the same roof with the same love, the same attention, the same schools, all that stuff, and they wind up being so totally different in personality. It's hard to imagine, but that's what happens. So yeah, and I actually wrote my first story with my son on my lap as a toddler, maybe 2 years old, something like that. And it was back in the days of green screen monitors with very basic word processing programs.
Yeah,
And
DOS.
yeah, exactly. Yeah, you had to do your config sys to be able to boot up some games because you had to arrange the memory so it would load. Anyway, well, bringing back nightmares. But he sat there and he was I credit this with his development, obviously, because I'm going to take credit for it. But he's sitting there watching the cursor move on the screen and seeing I was doing things on the keyboard and put that together at a very young age that hey, if you do things on the keyboard, things happen on the screen. So
Yeah.
now he can program the stupid things with all sorts of coding language.
Oh
I
man,
take full credit for that.
I'm dealing with screen time issues
Hmm.
for a 4-year-old now with tablets, and of course they make a bunch of really great software
Oh yeah,
that teaches kids how to read. And
yeah,
my daughter
absolutely.
was just really has just been really taking to it, and it's
Hmm.
very exciting to watch and so excited to be part of, but it's tough to know when to like take it away. And
But I'm reading, Dad. I'm reading.
yeah, exactly. And we were, and she'll play games on there, and we went on vacation down in Sandbridge, Virginia, last week, right? And
Hmm.
they have arcade games at the Airbnb that we stay at, and they have Miss Pac-Man. And I was like, man, wouldn't it be a miracle if my daughter learned video games like I learned video games, which is from like the very simple to like, we'll get her playing GoldenEye by the time she's like 11, and it'll be the greatest thing she's ever seen. And we'll just raise her Amish until then.
Well, I learned video games by wasting like $1,000 in quarters every weekend. So
Yeah, yeah, precisely. This is
because you
this
can only
is
get so
yeah.
far on one quarter, and then you would die, and you'd have to stick another quarter in within 30 seconds to get back to life. And yeah, Dragon's Lair was like, geez, I can't get through this. I couldn't get past the first three levels on that. So
Yeah, I just
anyway,
played Duck Hunt. I used to love to play Duck Hunt, and Mario Brothers and Mario Brothers 2 were my
yeah,
were my favorites on Nintendo. Followed by NHL 94 on Super Nintendo.
yeah. But I hear you,
Legendary
man.
game.
It is hard to know when to get them to quit because they will stay on it for a long time if you let them.
Yes. So in terms of you've got your book coming out.
Hmm?
In terms of sort of visualizing your strategy, because uh, you've done a marketing blitz. Your marketer reached out to me. It's
Yep.
interesting because, of course, many authors get emails from marketers and
Hmm.
direct messages,
Yep.
and we're never quite sure if they're real. but
Yeah, if you've
but
been on
she
Twitter lately,
seems
you've been flooded by
yeah,
people
but
that say they can get you whatever.
she seems quite real.
Hmm. Yes.
And she reached out to me, and of course, I'm always happy. I was very interested in your book, and I'd seen marketing for it even before she reached out to me.
Good.
So you are being published by Blackstone. What is their expectation for you as an author when it comes to marketing? Just for because a lot of people who listen to the Dad Lit Pod are authors, and you're being published by Blackstone. What are they offering to you versus what are you having to take on yourself?
Yeah, that's a good question. I will say to you that I got more than I expected to get, quite honestly, in
Hmm.
terms of support from Blackstone. Their sales department, I know, is out there pitching a book. They've signed me up for a couple of author signings. Um, they have reached out to various sources. It's just been a lot more support than I thought, right? Because I
Hmm.
really expected to be on my own completely, and instead it's been great. They've been doing a great job of they put together a, 3-page marketing plan, and as far as I know, they're sticking to it, and I actually need to check in and find out where we are. But then, this launch with Blackstone is like the big thing for me. So I wanted to go all in, and that's
Yeah.
why I hired Liz Malone to help with the marketing blitz, as you say. And she's terrific. And I came to her through referral, and I actually spoke to a couple of her clients before diving in, and they were nothing but complimentary, and so same for me. So she's doing a great
Mhm.
job of supplementing where Blackstone maybe is not quite as broad as could be.
Yeah. So
They tend to scatter shoot, right? So they've sent the book out to a bunch of NetGalley people who I don't understand why they do this, but some people on NetGalley grab a book that is really not for them, and they
yeah.
read it and then they give it a really crappy review. So I'm like, why did you send it to them anyway? So
Yeah.
Liz
Yeah.
Liz is much more targeted to the right audience and the right people that are going to be interested in reading something like this, and so she's been real good about that.
Yeah, the blurb industrial complex is what we're all referring to it now.
Yeah,
This
yeah,
is,
yeah,
it's very weird. It's
yeah,
very weird to that they a bunch of people choose to review books that they won't like.
yeah. I don't
It's
get it.
it's that
Yeah.
I wouldn't that wouldn't be for me.
I don't have time. I don't have time to do that. I'm certainly not going to write a review on something if I
Yes.
did not finish it. If I just said, oh, this is crap, I'm just going to throw it out. I mean, I wouldn't. As an author, you don't want to write negative reviews of other authors anyway, just
Yes.
because retaliation, and it's just really not done. So, um,
Well, I think because when you're an author, you develop an appreciation for what goes into putting a work together and
oh yeah,
the challenges, and it's like it just doesn't feel um, it doesn't feel apt to to knowing where all the pitfalls are in the process, knowing where
hmm
the challenges of getting an editor, knowing the challenges of time, being a dad lit author like myself. I've got a 3 year old, the wife, a job, all of those things, how much time do I have to practice my prose? Type of thing. You just
yep,
it just doesn't feel right to
no,
do some sort of negative reviews. I think it's much more of a thing to talk about all the stuff you like about a book, all the stuff that went into it, all the stuff that inspired it. It's just a better way to approach it from like a collegial point of view.
yeah, yeah. You definitely can be positive in criticism, but and if somebody asks me, I'll tell them what I think.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not going to go out of my way to tell somebody that, hey, man, your baby's ugly. Um, but because that's what it's like. It's like showing your baby to the world, and
Yeah.
people saying, "Oh, your baby's ugly." I'm like, "Oh my God, it hurts my feelings so bad." Um, but if somebody asks and say, "Man, I really need some feedback on this," then yes, I
Oh
will lay it
yeah.
out and let them know. And I have lost friends there, not friends. I've lost acquaintances that way who were like
Mhm.
they didn't really want to hear what was wrong with it. They wanted me to tell them it was great, and it wasn't. So.
Yeah, Alex again, my friend who's been on the show, he's my primary beta reader.
Mhm.
And I'm his primary beta reader, and we are usually the first to see each other's work. And sometimes have to be painfully honest with each other. Uh,
Yeah. And you can do that. You can do that the right
yes.
way. Yeah,
Yeah.
you can do it the right way. You can just say,
Yeah, of
"Look,
course.
this scene didn't work for me because blah blah blah." You don't have to say
And
that, "Hey, you really suck because this is awful."
yes,
So,
I did tell him that very few people want to read about a man having loving intercourse with their wife in the first act of a thriller. They do not want to hear that. They're
yeah,
not
that's a
interested.
little bit two something. I'm not sure what the word is, but yeah.
And he rather aptly told me my um that my protagonist, my most recent, felt very flip
Flippant?
yeah,
No?
more like she wasn't consistent, and
Hmm.
that I needed to do something to make her more likable, or else I was going to struggle holding on to readers.
Yeah.
And I was a little resistant to it at first, and then I realized he was completely right and
Hey, that
added that
happens.
in. Yes, yeah. So now I think we've all been there to that extent. We've all sort of had that type of thing happen.
Oh, sure. Absolutely. And I've gotten to the point where criticism is just flows off my back. I mean, I've gotten one-star reviews on works. I've gotten, things that are, um, from folks who have said, "Hey, I didn't like this because of whatever," and you just got to let it flow, man. Just
Yeah.
take the goods with the bads.
So you're putting a lot of effort into your marketing in this round with this book.
Yeah,
What I I'm always interested in this because my dream is to one day see my book in an airport. That's it. That would be that's me seeing Naples,
yeah,
uh,
right. Yeah.
type of thing. What do you want to see for a level of success with your book? What is going to make you feel like you took your book all the way to where it
Well,
could?
yeah, I've already won from that standpoint. I mean, I have, I, my one of my goals when I started this process was to be traditionally published with an agent and all that stuff. So that has, that box has been checked. Um, Now, obviously, I want to make a splash with this book. I
Mhm.
want to hit the market hard. I want to be out there. If I make a list, that'd be great. Yes, I would love to be in every Barnes and Noble across the country, every library, all those things are wonderful. I would say to you that I did hear from the sales department that yes, we will be in airports, with some
Oh,
physical copies. So
congratulations.
yeah,
Yes. Yes. Well
and the
done,
guys have
sir.
sold the TV film option. So we're looking at developing it for that medium. So looking at that as well. So
Oh,
if it ever makes it to
congratulations.
a screen, streaming, whatever, I will be so far over the moon I couldn't tell you. But
Yes, yes. That's terrific. Well, congratulations.
thank you.
Yeah, that's
It's been a great
awesome,
journey.
man.
It's been fun. This thing started out. I started writing it in 2020,
Yep.
and I think I was finished 21, 22 at the latest, and it's taken 3 years, to get to this point, where we are now, just a month away from launch.
Hmm. And in the meantime, have you been writing anything else?
Yeah, I have. And I got stuck into I wanted to write a military science fiction, right? Because, like I said, I'm
Hmm.
like a squirrel. Everything catches my eye. Oh, I got to go do that. Um, I've got all these story ideas in the hopper, and this one was about uh, two colony ships that leave Earth at a certain point in time, one a little behind the other. And because of time dilation and the acceleration of velocity over that length of time, they were approaching like 3/10 the speed of light as they sailed to this new planet. But because of time dilation, one went a little faster than the other. The second one wound up at the new planet like 400 something years after the first one. And the original settlers, the first wave settlers, had essentially, gone to barbarism. They'd fallen into a tribal sort of economy. There was no real colony. It was just all about, think the old West, if you will,
Yeah.
Native Americans and that type of thing. And so we have now the second wave, and we have a small group of U.S. Marines who are going to be the buffer to help between those two. Now, all that sounds great, right? So I'm writing this thing, and I keep getting, oh gosh, I need to go back, and that's not the word I used. I need to go back and write this scene to make this make sense. And it kept just blowing up, right? I got to 70,000 words. I'm like, man, I need to make this like twice this size just to make it anything. And so I had to say, all right, set aside, go over here and lay down and leave me alone for a minute. and then I went into the sequel to Cottonmouth. So that's where I'm at now, is working on that piece.
Well, that should be great. Is it going to be Return to Cottonmouth, or are we going someplace else?
Absolutely going to be back in Cottonmouth.
Nice, nice. Did someone else stumble it in?
Yeah, well, no, not quite. I think this is going to be, somebody will be a traitor and will be giving up the identities of some of our
Oh, I
residents,
like
and
that.
yeah, they will be having to deal with that.
I like
So
that.
that's where the second one's coming in, and yeah, the reason that one of the things I really thought about when I said I was to conceptualize this is that all these different characters, right? They all have a backstory that needs to be fleshed out and told and brought into, uh, the milieu of having all these different characters, right? You don't want to just write a paper character. You want to give them history and agency and all the stuff that goes with that. So I just thought
Hmm.
it was a great vehicle to be able to tell lots of different stories throughout the experience of Cottonmouth.
No, that's great. Well, congratulations
Thank you.
on getting Welcome to Cottonmouth out there. Do you want to do one last plug?
July
What can
8th.
July
July
8th?
8th. If you're in near Dallas, Texas, come by the Half Price Bookstore on the flagship store. It's Northwest Highway. We'll be doing a signing at 7 o'clock there for a launch day signing, and then it's available pretty much in every outlet source that we can find for it. And the audio book, I'm not sure when it's coming out, but
Nice.
it's got a terrific narrator. Um, I'm going to butcher his name, Eduardo Ballerini, who's sort of a known voice actor. I don't do audiobooks, so I'm not really sure who's who with that genre, but I'm told that he is really a top-notch narrator. And I listened to some of his stuff and they actually sort of nailed the accent, so that was great.
Well, terrific.
Yeah,
I'm excited to do it. Coming out July 8th. Welcome to Cottonmouth. Buy it wherever books are sold, it appears. And make sure to review on Goodreads and Amazon to get the word out.
appreciate
J
your time, sir.
Appreciate you. Thank you, Jay. This has been an episode of the Dadlet Pod.